you are listening to the Kinetic Man podcast. I'm Stuart.
And I'm David, and we want to walk with you on the journey to living a life defined by uncommon action that is full of purpose, adventure, and meaningful relationships. Our goal is to refine our why while helping you find yours, and together achieve our best and highest purpose. In the end, we'll drive each other to leave the potential life behind and become kinetic men.
And one of the things that David and I love most about podcasting is the incredible conversations and the advice that we get from our guests. Honestly, I truly believe it's the one thing that has made the most impact on me for my personal growth. And what you may not realize is that David and I oftentimes get a ton of free advice before and after the show, spanning from different topics between investing, parenting advice, how to create an epic marriage, health, tips and tricks, and much, much more. Unfortunately for you listeners, we've been a bit selfish and we haven't shared all of that sage advice with you guys, but that's coming to an end. Over the past 3 months, we've started to ask and record this one question to all of our podcast guests. What is the one action step that you recommend taking to level up in your business and in your personal life? And the answers have been life-changing. So the question is, would you be interested in hearing those same answers? We're calling it Leveling Up with TKM, and we want to share it with you. Only for $2 a month, you'll get 4 recorded videos every month in your inbox with those answers to the question that we just asked. And here's how you get it. Go to thekineticman.com/level up. Again, that's thekineticman.com/level up. Sign up today, get those videos, and go take uncommon action. What's up, my dudes?
Yo, what up, dudes? 2024 in the house.
The big 2-4.
Big 2-4.
Do you guys stay up until midnight on New Year's Eve?
Yes, 100%. East Coast time. East Coast time, maybe.
East Coast time. We did like involuntarily because our children would not go to sleep. Like my infant and 3-year-old both were up till approximately 11:15 when we finally collapsed on the couch.
And
years past, very anticlimactic.
Yeah, dude. Same here. Like very anticlimactic. Well, we don't make it to midnight ever. In years past, we'll put it on like Italy time or something like that, and like get like bells and we'll like bang on pots at like 7 o'clock.
They have like little apps too, like not apps, but like YouTube will be like, hey, I want to do like it's like 8:15 at night. I want to do a ball drop. Go.
That's what we do.
Yeah. This year, my son was in rare form and he decided to throw like a major tantrum at about 6 o'clock that night. And he went to his room for a little timeout session and he fell asleep. And so like we were trying to be quiet. And so we didn't want to like ring bells and bang on pots, right, to like wake him up because he was already like in super grumpy, angry mode. So I got on my phone and literally like put a timer on for like 30 seconds. And me and my daughter were like, hi, or like in whisper mode, like, Happy New Year. And it was like 8 o'clock at night. And then we went to bed.
Sounds awesome.
It was not that awesome.
No.
Anyways.
Is today talking about how to party it up?
It's not.
If it is, Stu, I'd recommend we hit stop, record, and I don't think there's gonna be any good advice on how to party it up from us. This is my thought.
No, but that was by no means a win for me in that column, unless like you call going to sleep at like 8:30 at night on New Year's Eve a win, which
hey man, I count that as kind of like a strong win.
Yeah, that's kind of a win for me. But hey, we're talking about. Go ahead.
I'll bring it full circle.
Yeah.
The Kinetic Man podcast, sponsored by Solar Stove. I did take the Solar Stove out to the driveway at like 8 p.m. and did fireworks, and yet again, it attracted adults out of their houses because nobody else on our street was doing anything fun. Which, by the way, so where I grew up, like fireworks were a big thing in Texas. Like you went out, did fireworks like in the street. Cars knew like just don't drive fast on New Year's Eve, and like when you come upon a row of fireworks in the middle of the street, just like go around them. Apparently, that's not a thing here in Philadelphia. I know it is downtown. Like fireworks are a thing year round downtown, but out here in the burbs, like I confused every neighbor that drove down our street because we had fireworks in the middle of the street. Like people were stopping and backing up and like going, like turning around and like going the other way. And I was like, fair enough.
Who's this
I own this street
crazy
right now.
man
I'm
putting
the king of the
fireworks up?
street with fireworks. But we did bring the solo stove out at like 8 p.m. and it was awesome.
That is awesome.
Dude, one of my favorite purchases this last year. 100%. We say it, but we took it out into the woods, I guess, with my brother, with his family, kids, and to cut down a Charlie Brown Christmas tree. It was awesome. But dude, lit that fire. It's just like it just brings joy, man. I brought some neighbors over the other day. Actually, my I went to my balcony and I can look out and see my neighbor's balconies. So my neighbor had his solo stove out 2 houses down, and then I had mine. So we were having like a solo stove battle to see who could be more popular and attract more. But it was in our backyard, so we weren't attracting anybody. But dude, it's a great tool. But I will say, and we're gonna talk about this. Stu, you have some things to highlight. What I will say about stuff like the solo stove, for example, is that it was a very, very intentional purchase. And we've talked about it quite a bit and how to create opportunities and how to be intentional with things like attracting adults, creating honeypots, creating environments where we get together, build community, have amazing conversation, have a lot of fun. And that that has been a huge thing for me this year. Is intentionality has been a significant way that we have that I've changed everything from parenting to the Kinetic Man to building businesses, doing real estate, and it's been a very powerful thing.
Yeah, man, for sure. And we started a few new endeavors inside of Kinetic Man. And Steven, you wanna hit on the manifesto?
Yeah, so we are writing every 2 weeks the manifesto, which is the most valuable email in your inbox. It takes between 3 to 5 minutes to read. And one of the ones we sent out at the end of the year, we asked guys to email us in their wins for 2023 as either a dad, a husband, or a friend. And so that's part of what you're going to hear today is people emailing their responses into us to that newsletter. So if you're not getting it, sign up, go to thekineticman.com/newsletter. And then if you are getting it, feel free to smash that reply button anytime when you get one. I read all those emails and reply to all of them. I love reading them. So
Smash it. Smash the reply button. I
yeah,
like that. Love
aggressively do it with kineticism.
kineticism. Uh, so yeah, so hey, let's start with reflecting on a few of our own wins, if you don't mind. David, you had mentioned the solo stove. Stephen, you mentioned the solo stove. David, you mentioned just being more focused on intentionality this year. But if you guys, and I'll do the same, but if you guys could reflect on like what's one big win that you each had this year, 2023.
Yeah, man. And I don't want it to be this nebulous thing of intentionality, but what I will say is, so one of the things that I've noticed um that we, and there's a number of reasons for it, right? So there's built into the Connect My Mastermind is this framework that we use, the real framework, the real paradigm, right? And real is an acronym. It basically breaks out to reflect. So the R is critical thinking. It's reflecting on a thing, whatever that thing is. Typically, it's a topic that we're diving deep into. And then the E is execute. So you execute, you take action, right? That's the entire idea behind the Kinetic Man is that it's not the potential man. It's not like, hey, let's have kumbaya session, man. It's not hold hands and just share therapy session, man. Those things are all awesome. It's the Kinetic Man. You do something about something, right? You take action, you get into motion. And so the execute part of it is that's what it's all about. And then the A is account. And so you account for it. And then the L is live. Like these things should become part of your life. And the reason why I highlight that is to say my mind now works in the real framework. So, when I'm parenting with my kids, I reflect. Like when I yell at my kid, I lose my mind on my kids all the time, right? Like I'm like, you guys, like you cannot stop. This morning it happened. As soon as I left the room, like we're having a good morning, kind of. We're having a decent morning. My son, my youngest, is such a turd. My middle son comes down and he's poking, right? He knows what Noah's gonna do in the morning. So he's like, "Good morning, Noah." And I'm like, okay.
Just
But he's
poking the
testing him.
bear.
He's testing because he knows that Noah's not gonna like Noah's that he's just kind of a turd in the morning, and so he's not going to respond. And so then I said, okay, Noah, here's the deal. For every minute you don't respond to your brother, that is the amount of time times five that I'm going to take away from how much time you want to spend on your iPad this afternoon. And he's like, good morning. And he loses his mind crying and says good morning in a terrible way. But my point is I reflect on some of these things instead of just reacting, or if I do react, which I oftentimes do, I'm an emotional guy, I will then step back and reflect on that thing, right? Okay, how can I have been a better dad? Why did I do that? What about me caused me to allow these little curmudgeons to get under my skin and cause me to react a certain way? Like I reflect on these things. And the execute part is then I will take an action, right? Like I will typically with my kids, I'll go apologize. I'll say, hey guys, daddy, I'm trying my best. I'm trying to be a reflection of our Father in heaven, and I'm failing. I'm not him. He's perfect. I'm not. Sorry, I yelled at you guys. You guys did deserve it. Here's where you went wrong. Here's where I went wrong, and we talk about it, right? And then account like I know I'm going to talk to one of you guys about stuff. Like it just naturally happens now, and we kind of report like we self-report, as you call it in the military when you commit like a security violation or whatever. You self-report like, hey, dude, I did this. Like I sucked. What are your thoughts? Stu and I had this conversation this morning already about our kids, and then I intend to live it and make apologizing and talking to my kids and all these things a normal part of my battle rhythm and part of who I am as a dad. And I do that in my relationships with my friends, with my wife, business relationships, all these different things. I go through that process. That has been life changing. And what's even more amazing is I'm now seeing at least two of my kids. My youngest, this is a challenge, but two of my kids are now very quick to apologize genuinely, right? This is a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old. Like my 10-year-old will come up and be, hey, I'll give him time. He's a very emotional kid. He'll come up and be like, Dad, I just want to apologize for the way that I said this thing to you. And he does it regularly now. And I'm like, dude, you're my guy, man. Like that's a beautiful thing. Thank you so much for saying you're sorry. And my point is, it's not just what I've seen in my life and how I feel differently. I don't carry anger around anymore. Like if I'm mad at my kids or my friends or whatever, I engage it, I talk about it, say sorry where I need to say sorry, and then move forward, right? Very intentionally. But there's also the benefit of other people will react to you that way, right? Like I am now seeing the fruit of that investment in a very beautiful way, but it's also making them better human. I don't need my kid to apologize to make me feel good. I want him to be a better human being who can apologize and do the same thing. And so that for me has been really, really, I'm really excited about moving forward. And dude, I'll tell you what, my kids, for me, faith is super important. Do my kids have recently been talking, like asking so many questions about Jesus and like super genuinely interested and curious and like and those conversations that are very, very important to me have been spurned in large part or have been inspired in large part because of an intentionality to put the phone down, an intentionality to talk to them, an intentionality to say, I'm sorry, I am not a reflection of your Father in heaven, right? Like things that are priorities to us or to me. And it's been having a very interesting effect and it's been very encouraging. I'm not living an Instagram life. I'm not living the Facebook dream, right? Like I was yelling at my kids just this morning, a couple hours ago. So it's not like
You're like
everything's
the only one, dude.
perfect.
You're like the
Dude,
only
it's
one.
not, yeah, I'm the only one. It's not rainbows and unicorns, but it's way better and it's way more meaningful and it's way more intentional.
I love that, man. Um, but Stephen, before we go into what you had to say, it reminds me of really two of the responses that we got from Stephen, your question. And I'll just not give their full names. I'll say one. Marcus, he responded with just this idea, the decision making process that you're talking about, David, and like the intentionality of just having in the back of your mind always this idea of family, like a family first, and being more present at home and being more present father and a present husband. And he said, like, we all want to be better husbands, we all want to be better dads, but like having these weekly conversations, sometimes you kind of go about your day and you forget about this stuff and you get into bad habits. But like having in the back of your mind a conversation that you had this week with a group of men that have that intentionality, brings back the focus every single day, every single week on being that present husband, on being that present father. And so he's been really grateful and seeing a ton of change just because he has the weekly conversation and it's in the back of his mind of, an idea or a way to do something differently or, whatever, was on the discussion panel that week. It helps him just have that at the forefront of his mind, just to be better. So I thought that was really cool. The other one that responded with was similar was a guy named Trey, and he said that his decision making has become a lot better because we went through this core values exercise, and he's like, now I have in the forefront of my mind my core values and my family's core values, and that helps me make better decisions based on the core values that I know I have. It's a process that I go through much more regularly now because I know the core values, and then a decision point comes up, and I can make a decision based on my personal core values and my family's core values. So I thought that that was really cool too. That win of just better decision making because you're more intentional about knowing your values, which I think a lot of people don't uh, know those and go through the process of that. Any thoughts on those?
Yeah, dude. I mean, lots of thoughts on it, but I think again, I, I think it's fascinating that when we take, we're not talking about like drastic steps, right? It seems to be drastic steps, especially for like making friends or getting in a group of dudes and talking about profound things. It seems the idea of it seems drastic. I'm going to create family core values. Like it seems like these big lift things, but it's very easily and very quickly normalized when you get around the right people, right? And when you're intentional about surrounding yourself with when you decide to make a change, like you're like, okay, dude, I want friends in 2024. Like I want dudes. I want to experience the feeling of awesome friendships. Like that is an amazing thing. And it may seem daunting, but sometimes it's just like okay, I'm just gonna reach out to like these kinetic men dudes and just see. And there's gonna be an investment in yourself in that, right? And I'll tell you, you join in and you get like today, we're having lunch. There's a dude flying in from Hawaii to Colorado who's part of the group. There's dudes that he's never met except maybe on a screen that are gonna meet. I don't think you've ever met Russ in person,
Not in
have you?
person. Nope.
You did, you just don't remember at my wedding. You did, but you don't remember it because back then
Uh,
you didn't know him.
yeah.
But the point is you're going to meet and you're going to hug and there's already a depth of relationship and Steven probably has some FOMO that he's not going to be there, right? To be able to like hug it out with these dudes and to meet Russ in person because he's an amazing human being. But now Russ is part of a network. There's a guy that he's never met. Jeremy's going to show up and they've never met in person, right? But there's already a depth of relationship that those dudes like we're all drawn to come and have lunch thousands of miles away from where Russ is from.
Yeah.
And that's special. And it's not that hard. It's not that hard. And when you talk about core values, most of us we just don't even think about it in our household. And that it could have the power to drive decision making processes and reactions and decisions that we're making to do things and move forward and look into the future. That it has the power to do that. And in reality, if we could sit down, I could sit down with any person listening to this podcast, and we can in 10 minutes get that ball rolling and probably have something on paper, and it be like more meaningful than probably any 10 minutes you've spent potentially in your life, because now it's not about me, it's about you doing a thing, and now you have this set of words that will drive your life and could potentially drive the course of your family, right? So like I think my when you tell that story, I just love how these simple steps can have lifelong impacts and drive lifelong decisions and really give focus and clarity to moving forward and becoming the men that we want to be.
Yeah, dude.
I don't want to gum up the works too much because we got several of these to get through today. But one thing that I did notice from this year, talking about like core values, I noticed it in identity, core values, and purpose is that they can feel daunting because there's this vision of like, I'm going to make my core values, I'm going to go have them engraved on a piece of red oak and they're on my walls.
Ah,
And then I'm going to hand that down to my children and my grandchildren will have this weather. You know what I mean? Like, there's like this finality sense to it. And it's okay to this year, I think that we have learned working through these things with our men. It's okay to say, these are my core values for now, like if that's what it takes to write something on a piece of paper, right? Like this is, especially in purpose. I think we learned that in purpose. Like this is my purpose for right now, and that's okay. Like it's gonna change, and that's okay. And eventually, it may settle. Eventually, like you'll get to a place where it's kind of a little bit. It's ready to be engraved on that piece of oak, on the wall. But it's okay if it's not right now.
headed. That's good. What about you, Stephen? What was your big win for
Yeah,
last year?
I had a bunch, but the one that I'm gonna pick out, it has really been on our mind recently, and it's been a slow burn, and so it's still occurring here in 2024. But that's health. So we talked about how I don't know what month we did that in, probably in the middle of the year, right? Like maybe July or something.
Yeah, I think it
Um,
was.
way back when. And I sent a video to the men in our group on our chat. At the end of that month, I sent a video sitting in my car outside of a personal trainer. And I said, "Hey guys, like I'm taking action, right? Like this is what we talked about is taking action on the things that you have decided are important to you. And we had decided that health was important to us. And so I was considering paying somebody a lot of money, what I consider to be a lot of money, right? Like think $300 a month. So more than I've ever paid on any kind of health, food, nutrition, any in that realm. Um, long story short, it didn't work out. It wasn't the right fit, and that's okay. Like it was like an amicable, yeah, like this isn't quite right. And it was mostly because of schedule. Like he only had like 1 hour slot during the day and it was at 5 o'clock. And I was like, I will be healthy and fit and divorced if I go from 5 to 6 o'clock every day, while my wife is trying to deal with dinner and two kids, right?
Hey
So,
man, these are things we have
um,
to weigh though. We have to prioritize stuff, right?
yeah, yeah, I'll be ready for dating again. But no, but long story short, like it was kind of discouraging, and it took me a little bit to get back out there and figure out what we're gonna do. And so then in trying to get this right, like mid-September-ish, so a couple months later, um, we joined both my wife and I joined Orange Theory, and then we have taken several incremental steps in our health and we have agreed and it's been difficult we agreed early on like to each other like this is important to us and it's important enough to put our like time and treasure and priorities behind and to say no to some other things and um come all the way forward to January and we had been going to the gym like 3 times a week, every week since September, October-ish timeframe together. And my wife and I both were seeing like some progress, but it wasn't really like what we wanted. We weren't moving the needle, right? And we knew like there's a couple of things that go into health. So if you kind of break down the three, right? Like sleep, exercise, and nutrition would be like your big three. And we had the sleep and the exercise down. So it only left one that we really were just not doing well. And this was a hard pill to swallow because if anybody who knows me well, you guys know this, right? Like I had some medical stuff happen in November and my normal W-2 job, I cannot do it right now. So I'm on kind of a long-term hiatus from that. And my family's still taken care of. Like we can still, live a perfectly wonderful life, but our budget is like 1/3 of what it was. And so that brought some hard decisions. But because we had made that choice back in July, August, September timeframe, we at the beginning of the year said like this is important enough, like we have to make a change. And it felt crazy to us that I was staying home most days of the week and my wife is staying home most days of the week, and we couldn't get like easy, healthy meals on the table early in the evening, right? So like we could do one of those things, or we could do maybe two of those things, but not all three. We couldn't get like if we were gonna make a meal that was healthy and quality, it was at like 8 p.m. at night, which through some of the stuff that we've learned is not great, right? Like you want to compress your eating window. And so we ended up I looked at private chefs, which for anybody who's like interested in that, like they landed right around the neighborhood of like $25 a plate on average. And then we found a CrossFit gym that has like a commercial kitchen that's a part of it and does like ready-made meals for the CrossFit community in this area. And so we decided that um, 5 nights a week, we're going to purchase ready-made, healthy, like high quality ingredient meals. And it works out to be like in the neighborhood of like 12 to $13 a plate or so, which sounds like a lot, especially when, me coming out of the FI community, they have always had the like $2 per meal per person kind of mantra. So we're 7 times that. But it wasn't it wasn't the that we couldn't buy quality ingredients. That wasn't the issue. And it wasn't that we don't know how to cook well, and it wasn't that we didn't have the time throughout the day. The issue was that with 2 small kids and our schedules, like my son's gym is at 5:15 to 6:15. So then you come home and like then you're working on putting a quality meal on the table, and it just didn't happen. I took a really hard look at our schedule, and it was like, no, like we on average we almost always go out and get a meal on Wednesday night on our way home because it's the easiest thing and as fastest when we're trying to get kids in bed. And so that was one of our wins, was like, no kidding, taking something um and kind of breaking it down, taking something like health, breaking it down into all of the components that like we have control over and the things that we have struggled to have control over. Um, Even if people point fingers at me and say like you should be able to control it. You should be able to meal prep on Sunday afternoons. Well, yeah, okay, great, except that, like we're usually trying to deal with like our explosion of a house that has occurred over the weekend because we had cousins over or whatever, right? Like we had the big family over on Saturday night. And so we just looked at it and we said, we are going to continue to put time and treasure in this area. And with our shrunken budget, that even means cutting out some other things. Um, but, but it's been awesome. Like I have to tell you, like my wife and I both, I think my wife is skeptical and she has been like, this is awesome. Like I can walk in at 5:15, grab a meal out of the fridge, you throw it in a pan on top of the stove, and it's ready in 5 minutes, and we eat. And then I'm like off to putting the kids to bed, and I've had like a healthy, high quality meal, and I'm not snacking and doing other stupid stuff. So that has been our win this year of like the accountability of taking action. I put out some goals there publicly in our private group, and knowing that people were going to ask me about it. Stu, I know that this has been like a big journey for you as well. So
Yeah.
sort of the peer pressure of like knowing you were making gains and I was not. We continued to make some changes. I also this is so I'll tell you what not to do. So I finally finished the 3 hour Huberman Lab episode on sugar,
Oh yeah.
and I went to our freezer and I threw a ton of stuff away. A ton of stuff, which inevitably led to a small argument but a very good long discussion. But don't go
An
to your freezer
argument
and
with your spouse or an argument with your
yeah,
kids?
spouse in defense of the kids.
Uh,
But
It's always
no,
better to
it's
do it
been
as a
good.
team. Team buy-in is good
Yeah. Yeah.
for
Team up.
house health.
Problem is there's no amount of buy-in that is going to get my wife to listen to a 3 hour podcast. But it was eye-opening. I have to say, like if you have the time to invest, like I can't recommend the Huberman Lab all the time because they're so long and they are so technical. But I will tell you what, their episode on sugar opened my eyes. It really did. And I mean, like I said, to the point of I took action that afternoon. I was like, we got to get some of this stuff out of the house. So it's been good. Health 2023. It's carrying over into 2024, but that was my win.
that's awesome, dude. I love it, man. Yeah, I've been on a health journey myself for sure. I hired a coach. I hired a guy named Alex Racy. He's uh special forces, Delta Force Army guy for 25 years, and he's a human performance coach. And we dug in, man. He changed a lot of things for me. My nutrition has changed tremendously. My workout habits. I'm going to gym and actually like getting under a squat rack and doing like, hang cleans and power cleans and deadlifts and stuff like that I used to do like in college baseball, but haven't done it since. Which it's been awesome, man. And that's been a win for sure. And I'm still on that journey and still learning. And I'm excited about it because I have seen some tremendous gains in it. The one for me that I wanted to just hit on, we had a podcast guest last year that said something that has just been ingrained in me from ever since he said it, and really changed the way I look at this one subject of faith. He said that I might not be able to quote it correctly, but like he said, more people are more worried about where we're going to send our kids to college than where our kids are going to end up in eternity. And that like kind of like hit me, like because we're all about like, education and teaching and like, helping our kids. But like I wasn't doing a very good job of teaching my kids about our faith, about Jesus. And I took a look at like what our habits are and what we do on a regular basis and tried to make Sundays more of a Sabbath. And like we started going to church every single Sunday, and we started doing like Bible study with our kids. We use this app called the Parent Queue, and it gives like a little video that the kids love, and then it gives us like questions to ask and Bible verses. And my daughter like got really into it. She started kind of memorizing some verses and asking a lot of questions, and we just had some like really really great conversations this last year. And she started hinting at this idea of getting baptized, um, all on her. Like it wasn't us just like, hey, when are you gonna get baptized? When are you gonna get baptized? And in our faith, in the Christian faith, like it's not like the baby baptism when like you don't have a choice in that. It's when you understand, your relationship with Jesus and you make the decision to commit to that. And so, she did that, and she on her own accord, on her own decision, she wanted to get baptized. And so this last November, we signed her up for being baptized at our church, and she got baptized in November. So um, super huge win. I'm getting emotional just thinking about it, but like just the weekly conversations that we have on Sundays, on our Sabbaths, and like sitting down talking about the lesson that they had at Sunday school that week, and just really being intentional about that. And then we've started praying a lot more together, like not just like the quick prayer before dinner, but like no kidding prayers before bedtime. And so it's been really good, man. It's been a huge win for me just to know that um, teaching my kids about Jesus and setting them up for a life of eternity, and not just like where they're going to go to college. So, um, kudos to Chris Granger, who we had on our podcast. He has a podcast called Line Within. He said that, and it was life changing, impactful for me.
I love that, dude. Yeah, and I think there's it also reminds me part of, I think, intentionality is just asking questions, asking harder questions of ourselves, of others, right? Like being willing to critically think and have a conversation. And to me, the idea of asking, what do I want for my kids from an eternal perspective? Like that's a pretty deep, profound question, but it also is not that hard to answer. And I guess if, I say this from a perspective of faith, right? So like for me, the context of faith makes the question, it grounds the question and enables the answer to be relatively easy to come by. And then the difficult part is okay, let me action that, right? And that's not even that difficult either, right? It's, one of the things that you and I discussed is praying with our kids more regularly. Like I like to pray over my kids at night, and I say things in the prayer like, Lord, thank you so much for these, for letting me be these kids' dad, and thank you so much that I could love them so much. Like there's things that I say to build them up, but also in the context of prayer, and pray over them and pray for the next day and all that good stuff. And if I can't speak from a non-faith perspective, because that's not who I am, so I don't presume to. But I imagine if you ask a question and you're not necessarily coming from a place of faith, you can also frame it in a way like, what do I want long term for my kids? And what does that look like today? Right. And what does that change about who I am? And so I think the asking the hard questions and then doing it with a group, like, there are certain things that have come just from conversation with you guys, like praying every night with my kids. That wasn't just like man, this is something I want to do. Like that was a number of conversations. And I was like, oh, I want to do this now because, Matt does this and Stu does this and Steven does like and how does this look in my life? So there's a lot of power in all these things to drive us towards change that we do in, church language fellowship, but fellowship just dudes hanging out and having deep conversations and being willing to live a more than life than we currently are. And a lot of times that's generated, and that the catalyst behind that is a question, right? Is a question. Like, why do I want to lose weight? Okay, I don't want to be fat. Okay, that's simple. Cool. Right. I don't want to have a heart attack. All right, sweet. Awesome. We know a guy that we know and love. He's like, I want to walk my kid down. And it's very, to me, it's kind of cliche, but oh, I want to walk my daughter down the aisle. Like that literally was the thing that drove our buddy to take action and get healthy. Right. That was the motivation for him. For me, that's never really been like, that's always like, I even just said it. I was like, oh, it's cliche. It's not cliche to some people, right? To some people,
No.
like that is the catalyst to drive action. So, dude, if you're with a group of dudes that are asking these harder questions, you want more out of life and to be better, like that's what can happen. And that's why I'm excited about you reading some of these like no kidding real stories from dudes because they didn't. Here's the thing. Here's the kicker. These things were not part of their live in their reality in their life until they took action to join a group of dudes to be different and to be better, right? And that's the power of it. It's not just, oh, I want to just join this mastermind. This is great. A lot of fun, whatever. There's an aspect of that. It's no, I want to be better. How do I do that? And a group of dudes pushes guys to make, significant changes in their life, which is amazing and can be super powerful.
Yeah, dude. Well, the individual you were speaking about, his response was exactly that. Al, he lost 30 pounds this year. He lost 30 pounds in 2023. He adopted a plant-based diet. He's exercising daily. And like his view of health, similar to Stephen, like has completely changed and has made it a priority in his life. And he also said that he has really taken a look and changed his idea towards giving, and he and his family completely changed their giving strategy, and they're giving way more to charities and donations. And so that's been really cool to see that mindset change. Another health change from an individual who replied is Matt, and he realized that his alcohol drinking was having a major impact on his health, and so he decided to just cold turkey stop drinking last year, and has had a major impact on his sleep, his health, his attitude, his energy, the way he shows up every morning for his family and for his kids. And so I thought that was really cool. We've had conversations with this individual, and it actually encouraged me to stop that as well. And so like I've stopped drinking alcohol, and I absolutely see a difference, man. Like it's been really helpful. Like for my sleep specifically, I'm sleeping way better. I got the Aura ring and track my sleep, and that was a part of going through the health coaching with Alex, and monitoring that. And so I think alcohol, not for everybody, but anyone who potentially could see a change and impact in that could be worth looking at. So huge health benefit in a decision that one of our other members made.
I actually started drinking more. Like I
Did
tried
you?
to
Oh,
double my consumption. Yeah. Yeah, it's been great.
I mean, how that goes.
Been great, man. Gaining weight like a champ, sleeping terribly. It's awesome.
Yeah,
I
good.
so I think you guys knew this. I did in 2023. I decided to do to limit my alcohol, and for me it was I was curious. I was curious what the change would be because going back to that health thing, I wanted to lose some weight, but also it became a discipline thing for me. So I decided I wasn't ready to cut just cold turkey, but I did realize that casually, informally, just with family, going to breweries, like always social and usually just with our family because we do a lot together. We're pretty close. That, like I would find myself maybe 4 or 5 nights having a drink and throughout a week. And so I told myself that I could have a drink 1 day per month. So 12 drinks throughout the year. And I did do that. I accomplished it and pretty quickly mid-year or so, June or July, it was more about just like, hey, I want to prove to myself that I can do this. Which it was awesome, and it definitely did kind of reset. It was a really nice hard reset on my approach to allowing alcohol in my life. Like I'm not cutting it out completely, but it definitely has been put back in a different place for me.
That's good, man. And I want to make note, like the Kinetic Man isn't about like not drinking alcohol. But we are about being healthy, right? And making good health decisions. Just depending on like how that impacts you. So, uh, good thought there for sure.
Well, and
Um,
again, it's
yeah,
also, I mean, what we are 100% about is just asking questions of why we do what we do, right?
yeah,
And does it serve us? And that's everything. That's faith, giving, that's finances, that's family, that's intimacy, friend. Like it's all the things we talk about. It's That's why we do it, is to take those topics that we have set our priorities and dig in and then determine, like, does this actually serve me or not? Because I think most of us, like when we go to a social event, we start drinking, like it's just almost automatic. And we were talking about habits this month in January, but one of my favorite things is, hey, are you choosing your habits, or are they choosing you? Right? Like which one is it? And just taking a simple assessment is step one. And then you can, like, dude, it says a lot. Like I don't even know why I watch YouTube for 19 hours a day. Like it might be wasteful. I don't know. Like it just being able to, like, no kidding, look at, quantify, and then qualify these things that we do or don't do, and then do something about it. Right. So like the
yeah.
drinking thing, like I'm not nearly as passionate. You and I talked about it. I'm not nearly as passionate about it, but I have also noticed, like, I rarely drink now. I used to come home and have a drink or two a night, a couple years back. And I thought about it. I'm like, why? I don't even, like, why am I doing this? It's become a habit. It's become a
Yeah.
habit. It's that simple. It became a habit. And then the habit it truly wasn't serving me. And so then I just stopped, and like, I don't miss it. Like, there's no, I don't judge it either. And I won't not have a beer with somebody or whatever. But again, it's just the intentionality of it, right? It's just like, okay, why am I doing it? Do I like it? Yep. Nope. Okay, cool. Moving on. Do something about it.
Speaking of habits, one of our members responded with a habit that he built this last year. Tim wanted to just have more an impact in his relationship with his spouse, and we had done the love language quiz, and he knew that the love languages for what his spouse was gifts. And so every Saturday, he would we did Atomic Habits last year, and we talked about habit stacking. So he started creating this habit stack of taking his dog to go walk along the beach every Saturday morning, and on the way back, he would stop at a Starbucks and get a coffee and bring it to his spouse, right? And that weekend habit of habit stacking, dog walking with a coffee for his wife and bringing it back. Um, like we have a WhatsApp group, and like literally every single Saturday for like, I don't know, was it like 8 months? He would send a picture of a Starbucks coffee cup with his dog in the background, and like that was it. And so like that habit of sending the picture, that accountability, right, to our WhatsApp group of posting a picture of a coffee cup with his dog every Saturday has now stuck because we don't get those pictures anymore. And he truly said that just that simple little thing has changed his relationship for the positive with his spouse.
You know what I think is so cool about that is the pictures, like you said, it was like 8 months or so, maybe not that long, right? Somewhere in the middle of the year, the picture stopped, and
Yeah,
I made the very logical, humble decide, assumption that that was because he had stopped doing it, and actually just recently he made an offhand comment that he stopped posting the pictures because the action that he wanted to become a habit had become a habit. And
yeah,
so he's still doing it. He just stopped posting the pictures because now it was part of life. And I thought that was so cool.
yeah. Super cool, man. Um, Another one that we got, and we'll try to wrap it up. Here's a few more that I think are pretty powerful. James gave us quite a few, and you might have heard some of these before because he's actually been on the podcast and talked about this. But um, James's father left, his biological father left when he was 5 years old, and he had no relationship with him. And through conversations within the mastermind, um, he decided to write a letter to his father. He actually wrote a letter to his grandma, which then his grandma somehow or another got it to his dad because he didn't even know where his dad was. And through a span of events, he received a letter back from his dad, and that started a conversation. And that conversation continues on now. He's had phone calls with his dad now, and he says it's still awkward, but it's the beginning of a relationship that he didn't have for 30 plus years. And I can relate to that. My dad and mom divorced when I was young, and I had a relationship with my dad. I didn't see him as much, on an everyday occasion, but like that was really powerful to me to like realize that just some conversations through our group spurned just sending a letter and then causing him to like rekindle a relationship with his father.
Yeah, and I don't want to just brush over. I mean, imagine if you will being in that scenario, right? And you can plug in whatever. Maybe it's not your dad, but an estranged relationship or potentially a relationship that just should exist that doesn't, right? And just imagine that and the level of courage and um, friction that you have to overcome in order to take a step to do something about that, right? That didn't happen for years. And I'll tell you, the conversation that led to the action also was absolutely a fascinating conversation that changed my perspective on so many things because a dude in the group asked James a question and it changed everything, right? And what it really was is he said, "Hey, have you ever put yourself in that man's shoes?" And the stuff that came out from that conversation, obviously we're not going to share that, but it was all of us in the room. Like you could have heard a digital pin drop in that call. Like everybody was just like, wow, okay. And it completely reframed the conversation. And then that led to, where he is today. And again, it's not, and if you ask James, he's like, dude, it's not like, again, it's not rainbows and unicorns, right? Like it's not like you wrote a letter and they're like, Dad, son, I love you. And they're running through a field and they're jumping and embracing and
Yeah.
30 years of no relationship is resolved in that moment. That's not reality. It's not what happened. But there are a lot of questions and weight that he carried, rightfully or not, as the kid, James specifically, that are now at least alleviated or gone, meaning or answered, meaning who is this guy? Well, now he's had a conversation, right? And why, like he now has an opportunity to ask some, why'd you leave or what, all these things that potentially would weigh on him to the day that he dies. And then he would die with regret, not knowing that the path towards overcoming that is now being paved, right?
Yeah, man.
And so that's the power of it. That's the power of it. And it takes a lot of courage. But he also knew, like, you tell me, dude, we're about to go into a fight, right? Would you rather be by yourself or would you rather be with your buddies? Like, it's a stupid question. Like, of course, you'd rather be with you. I mean, I would rather probably be by myself than if like Stu had my back, right? Because then I gotta like defend him and defend myself, and like it's just awkward.
Dude, I've been
But
I've been
like
watching my kids do jujitsu and like I got a few moves down.
yeah, sweet. So like, but all joking aside, like you always get more comfort when you're rolling with your homies, right? And so that's not just in a go to the meet me at the parking lot fight. That's like, hey, I have this very, very challenging thing to do. And I now have a group of dudes that I can do that with. That makes life better, dude. Makes life way better.
Yeah. For some reason, that song, I don't even know where it's from, but "Rolling with the Homies." What's that from? You remember what that's from? You're on
No,
mute.
the way you did that and said that, I have
"Rolling with the
zero
Homies." No, you don't remember that?
rolling with the homies. Yeah,
It's like I think it's a movie. Anyways, I digress. Hey, a few more. James had another one. And I think because of the relationship with his father, he is way more intentional about having a relationship with his kids, with his son. And he talks about he told us about a boys trip that he and his son went on. His son was 11, and he intentionally went on a long weekend trip, just him and his boy, to go skiing. And just the power in that, and how amazing it was, and how much he craves going and doing those more often, because of the impact with his son. The one-on-one time, it has been really powerful for him, and it gets me excited. My boy's 6, so I'm not quite there yet, but I intend on doing something. I know, David, you did a boys trip with your son at 10 just recently, right?
Yeah, our family, kind of a family tradition is you turn 10, you get to pick anywhere domestically and which parent to go to, which parent to go with. Excuse me. So my daughter and Maya went to Florida when we were in Maryland when she turned 10. Jake and I went to Montana, which I was like, you want to go to Montana, dude? Yes,
Yes.
100% yes. I will go with you. You want to go fly fishing? That's weird. Yes, 1,000% we'll go fly fishing.
You had
He
you
caught
had
his
no
first
say in
fish.
that?
I didn't pressure. Like, I'm like, hey, dude, what do you want? Like, anything you want to do? Because he has different interests. I actually thought we were gonna. Anybody who watches Dude Perfect? They have this thing where they go and do like a gem competition. It's actually super dope, dude. And they all go to a different place in the country, and there's a specific gem that they mine at that place, right? So in Arkansas, it's quartz or whatever it is, and they find some pretty cool stuff. I actually thought that's what he was going to want to do because he loves geodes and gems, and we always go to gem shops. So I was like, I guess we're going to go to some mine somewhere. And then he's like, no, dude, I want to go fly fishing in Montana and hang out with you, Dad, at Yellowstone. I was like, yeah,
Don't
but easy.
don't mind the fly fishing videos that Stu left running every night for the last 10 years in his bedroom.
Yeah, that's right.
Just
Yeah, yeah, no, there's a slight amount
subliminal
of brain washing, and I
Brainwashing.
mean there are certain intel things we learned in 20 years of military to like to kind of frame thinking. So there may have been some of that too, but yeah, and then Noah, in 3 years or 2 years, a little over 2 years, he'll get to decide where he wants to go, and if he wants to go with me or his mom. If it's what he said last night on that I'm the worst dad ever, then maybe he'll go with his mom.
Uh, hey, we're running close on time here. I want to hit on one more that I thought was just really interesting. Ethan replied to us in an email, and he gave us 4 or 5 as well. But one of them that kind of stood out to me that I thought was really interesting. He said his win in 2023 was learning how to cook sourdough bread. And I was like, interesting. And he gave a backstory to that, but and I'll shorten it. But bottom line was, like, he never really cooked or baked or anything, and he didn't do it because he just thought he was terrible at it. And he really kind of overcame this mindset, and started to kind of focus on this growth mindset, and having this imposter syndrome and self-doubt of cooking. And in 2023, he started baking sourdough bread every single weekend. And he came to, like, really, really enjoy it. And he got better at it over time, to where now, like, his sourdough bread is actually really good. And I just thought that was a really interesting win for the year. Just something so simple, but this idea of imposter syndrome, and the mindset that people have, um, that, like, can really impact your life in a negative
Dude,
way.
most of us are not doing things, and it's not. If we would voice the things that are stopping us from doing whatever it is we want to do, um, we would do so much more.
Yeah.
Meaning they're not insurmountable, and most likely, dude, if somebody were to reach out to one of us, I could almost guarantee that whatever that dude or dudette was like dealing with or wanted to get into, I'd be willing to bet that I know somebody just in the mastermind, not even outside networking, just in the mastermind that could resolve that question for him. And okay, I'm sure there's things that, you know, whatever that would be outside the scope. Like, I want to become an astronaut and go to space. But I bet you someone in our group probably like knows an astronaut. I would not be surprised if that even that question could be resolved by somebody, or a connection could be made by somebody to get you on that path. Right. And so it's, to me, it's it's sad, dude. It's super sad, the things that keep us from action, because they're oftentimes the thing that we're going to regret in the future at end of life. But it's also a lot of times so easily either resolved, or the path forward from where you are can be laid out for you. And then you decide if you want to do it or not. Right. And to me, it's so sad to not, right. It's that quote. I forgot the dude that said, if you Google, why the graveyard is the richest place in the world. Like if you Google that, there's a fascinating, quote by a dude that basically says, because that's where all the unstarted businesses are. And that's where all the things that you didn't do, and the pictures you didn't paint, and the family you didn't pursue, that's where they all reside, in the graveyard. And that's why the graveyard is the richest place on the planet. Uh, that to me is sad. That to me is super sad, because I
Yeah,
know you
dude.
can do something about it, right? I know you can do something about it. You can reach out to a dad you haven't talked to for 30 years. You can lose 30 pounds. You can completely change your dietary thing. You can start dating your wife. You can have a relationship with your kids. You can do so many things, dude. If you just voice it, and someone is like, oh, that's simple. That's simple. You can do that. Here's what we do. This guy did it. Here's what you do. Step one. And then boom, you're off and running.
There's there's a quote that is gonna, I always chuckle when I bring this up, because I don't aspire to be like Mark Zuckerberg in basically any area of my life, but there's a quote that he has that's really fantastic. And it is that your ability to keep doing interesting things is directly connected to your willingness to be embarrassed. And that quote came from an interview he did, I believe, with Lex Friedman on his podcast, where he's talking about learning jujitsu from zero, from square zero as an adult, and then signing up for his first jujitsu competition that was public. And he knew that it was going to make newspapers. Like he knew going in that he could, one, get dominated, and two, no matter what happened, it was going to be extremely public. And I love that quote, because I think it's so true that we don't tend to learn very many things as adults, and I think that that's why. I think that a lot of us have a hard time getting over the idea of being embarrassed, because it doesn't match the identity, the projection that we have of ourselves by this point, because we've been successful in our, other areas of life.
Yeah, dude. That's so good, man. Hey, I want to end on just a recent conversation, David, you and I had, that had been primed by another one of our friends that you also had a conversation with recently, and it's just this idea of regret. You've hit on it a few times in this episode, of regret, and we had Jordan Grummett on our podcast just recently. He wrote a book called Taking Stock, and he's a hospice doctor, and he talks a lot about the regrets of the dying. And it's been really at the top of mind for me lately, and I know it has for you. Could you just kind of hint on and talk about just this idea of regret and what we can do about it?
Yeah, it was so I had a conversation with a dude that was on our podcast, Matt Matson, who's a phenomenal human being. If you don't know him, figure out how to connect with him. He does this. He's a big on Facebook. Is creating effectively a global community, faith community, and he's just a phenomenal human being. But I was sitting down with coffee with him, and he was like, dude, what, like, just what do you do? Like, what do you do? And what is kinetic? Like, what, just tell me. Like, if you had to tell me, it's gray. Like, he was challenging me. And I said, dude, I think the bottom line, and this is fresh off the hills, as you mentioned, reading the book and having Doc G on the podcast, and all these different things that we focus on. We specifically, the three of us, started this group. And as I started thinking about why do we start this group, I started thinking about the story. We talk about, like, we were looking at our lives, and we were seeing our marriages devolve, and we were seeing our relationship with our kids be something. We were seeing we weren't doing what we wanted to do professionally, and we were not becoming the men we wanted to become. And as I was thinking through this whole story when I was talking to Matt, the thing that popped in my head immediately was, dude, we've been on a path to get to the end of our lives and not have regret. Like, that is the key. The key is the regret piece. And it's not living in fear of a thing. It's not a negative connotation, like, oh, I don't want to I'm afraid to come to end of life with this thing. It's not that. It's I want to come to end of life fully. You know, I tell my kids all the time, like when I turn my body in, like, dude, the thing's gonna be scraped up, beat up. I can hardly walk. It's gonna be limping in, running out of gas when I get to heaven, right? Like that's the goal. That's the goal to be mentally, physically, and spiritually in a place that I like gave everything I have, and there is no regret. And so, what do you do about that today? Right? What do you do about that right now? Because there's so many things that get like so many things. Like even if I think about who do I want to say something to today that I don't want to hold it back. I want to tell my friend, I want to tell this guy, I love you, dude. But okay, well, like today, I'm gonna go tell Russ and be like, dude, I'm so happy you're here. So happy you're here. I love you. Give him a big hug. Can't wait to do that in about 30 minutes. And so there are things that we do there's things we can do with intentionality that will drive towards an eventuality of no regret, right? Or at least minimizing the regret in our lives. And that's why we do what we do. Because we can, and what's so powerful about it is we know that today, right now, I can take actions right now that will make that future me not have regrets. I won't look back and be like, man, I wish I would have taken the opportunity to tell Stu and Steven I love them. Like, I wish I would have done that. I wish I would have had a podcast. I wish I would have. No, dude, just do it. Just do it. Why not? It's not that hard. Stuart, Steven, I love you guys. You mean so much to me. I say that 100% genuinely. And, and dude, it was not that hard. And is there maybe there's a chance of embarrassment or whatever? Get over that junk, dude. Like Zuckerberg, like it's gonna make the news that, dude, you're in the ring, man. Like, so invite the person in the media to come roll with you and choke them out. Like, whatever, dude. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're doing something. Like, who cares what other people think? I will not live a life that when I get to the end of it, that I'm regretful, that I'm embarrassed, that I dance with my kids and I kiss them and I roll the window down and I drop them off. I'm like, I love you. I love you. And all their high school kids are looking at the car like, who is that guy? I don't give a rip, right? I don't give a rip because those are the things in the future that my kids are going to be like, dude, my dad is such a freaking goofball and he loves me. He loves me. And my friends are gonna like my wife told me something very special the other day. She's like, dude, we were talking through some things and the downside of me and my friendship methods. But she said, I can't think of a person, and I'm not saying this to toot my horn, like it made me emotional. She's like, I can't think of a better friend than you. Like not for her, but for other friends. And to be completely transparent, she's like, the downside of that is like you have high expectations, your friends to call you back and this and that. Like that's what we were talking about. It wasn't a positive conversation necessarily. It was a growth conversation. But she said, but I can't think of anybody that another dude would want to spend time with. And I was like, oh, okay. But that's the dude I want to be. When I die, I want my friends to be there and be like, dude, I love this guy. You know why? Because he loved me, right? And there's no regret in that. There's no regret in that. And so is that possible? 100%, dude. 100%.
100%.
But what's more likely is that a lot of dudes are going to die with regret and they're not going to have the friendships that they wanted. They're not going to have the relationships that they wanted. And I personally, the kinetic man, I want to see that message get out because I don't want dudes to have that. It doesn't affect me, right? It doesn't affect me if some dude that I don't know dies lonely. But the idea that we could do something about it, that impacts me. And that's what makes it powerful. And so we're regret avoidance specialists, dude. Like that's what we do. That's what we do.
That's a new term that just came to mind. I love it.
Yeah.
You said you were gonna turn your body in, beat up and done. So we got like 18 months, 2 years.
Dude, I hope.
Right?
I hope. It's already beat up and hurting. But it's, it's like even Stu and I were talking about like we're both jonesing to get up to the mountains and snowboard. Like I love snowboarding and I potentially I'm happy to go by myself, but the idea of thinking of doing that with some buddies is just very different, right? It just is very different that I can share that life and that passion, that laughter, the stupidity of us like taking pictures and videos and all that stuff. the fact that I have my dudes that I can do that with, like it changes everything. It changes everything. It's more than just your family. I'm not saying family's not a top priority, but dude, like your friends are the family you choose. It's like do that, right? Do that.
Amen.
Speaking of snowboarding, you guys, 25th, right? January, if you're in the Denver area, go to
Yep.
thekineticman.com. There's a banner at the top of the website that has uh, a button. You can click that, put your email in there, and then you'll find out whenever the guys are going on one of the Thursday meetups. So if you're in Denver, join a tribe of guys going skiing.
Or just in Colorado in general, or just anywhere. If you want to fly in, we would love you to fly in and
It's true.
come snowboarding with us at
Come
Keystone.
hang out. Come hang out.
Just come out, hang out for the day. If you own your own private jet, just fly in for the day, hang out with us,
No. Kick
give us
it.
a kick it. We'll give you a few tips, on
And then let us
life.
fly in your airplane. Let us fly in your airplane.
Fly us around.
We'll be friends.
I might have found my new best friend.
Yeah, that hypothetical dude that owns a plane and flies into Colorado. Yeah, that's your new best friend. Good
Hey,
job,
they're out
Stu.
there.
You're
They're out
winning.
there. Uh, all right, this was good, man. This is good. This is encouraging. I love hearing these stories, these wins. Thank you to all the men who wrote in. We're vulnerable enough, we're honest enough to give us some of those. I'm excited about 2024. I'm excited about hearing more of these wins, not only for ourselves, but for the Kinetic Men. Any last minute thoughts, my dudes?
Uh, we'll do it again next year, but you can respond to that newsletter anytime. We're gonna start bringing stuff up that guys send in on the podcast more regularly. So we love to hear your stories, love to hear your wins, love to hear the things you're struggling with, um, whatever it is. We love reading those emails of the tribe around the world.
Love it. Men take action, uncommon action, live with no regret.
Giddy up.
See ya.
Amen.
See ya.
Maya, Jake, Noah, I love you.
Collins and Wells, I love you.
See ya.
Bye.
Hey, before we let you go and tackle the day, we wanted to tell you about a new product coming out called the Manifesto. It's a newsletter. It's free. It comes out twice a month, and we give actionable steps, insights, and inspiration to help you on your journey to becoming a better man. We aim to be the highest value per minute email in your inbox every time. So go check it out. You can go to thekineticman.com/newsletter. Again, that's thekineticman.com/newsletter and sign up for the manifesto. It is going to be awesome. See you.
Thank you for listening to the Kinetic Man podcast. If you are growth-minded, community-focused, and willing to take uncommon action to redefine success and live an abundant life, visit our website at www.thekineticman.com to see all the ways we can connect.
And on our website, you can find more information on everything we're doing, like joining our meetup page to get the details on our webinars and our local Thursday gatherings here in Colorado. From our site, you can also find more information on and sign up for the next Kinetic Man retreat and the next house of our mastermind group. Finally, we always appreciate your love and support. Please share this episode and go rate us on your favorite podcast player of choice.
Thank you again. Now go take uncommon action.